An immigrant mother and her teenage daughter reunited tonight after being separated at the border for more than a month now.
Eyewitness News border correspondent Oscar Margain caught up with the family right after the child's release in Brownsville.
The 40-year-old mother, who is going by the name of Isabella to protect her identity, says she was waiting more than 6 hours at Casa Nueva Esperanza shelter for minors today until the government gave the final okay to release her 17-year-old daughter. These are the images of a teen who's holding her mother for the first time in 40 days. Now, naturally, an emotional moment that brings the young girl to tears. Isabella says they were separated after they crossed the border through a port of entry seeking asylum on June 2nd. The separation was not something they expected would happen. She warns other immigrants looking to cross the border to think about it twice because it is not easy, she says. Many people in her country don't know this can happen because the news doesn't cover what's really going on here. They both fled El Salvador out of necessity. Difficult working conditions and discrimination was what forced them to leave. The government says 38 children under the age of 5 have been reunited as of Tuesday. We're not certain how many have been reunited today. The deadline to reunite children age 5 and older is in 2 weeks. Now, they're both headed to Maryland to fight for their asylum case with a hearing scheduled for July 26. When asked if she would do it all over again, Isabella said no way. She would not have come here now that she knows how difficult it's been being apart from her daughter. I'm Oscar Margain reporting in Brownsville near the Texas-Mexico border. Now back to you.